Ladies and gentlemen, stop whatever you're doing because this one is going to blow the lid off everything you thought you knew about love, loyalty, and late-night drama. Imagine this. It's past midnight, the city is asleep, but in one corner of town the flashing red lights of an ambulance are screaming louder than any love song ever could. Yandy, yes, that Yandy, suddenly collapses, leaving fans clutching their pearls and enemies whispering, "We saw this coming." But did anyone really? Or is this just another chapter in a story that spiraled so far out of control that even Netflix couldn't script it better? Now, hold on, because if you thought Yandy's sudden collapse was the main event, you haven't seen anything yet. Right outside the ICU doors, Mendeecees himself hits the ground. Collapsed, shattered, begging doctors like a man who knows too much and admits too little. Tell me, when's the last time you saw a husband crumble faster than the lies he's been stacking for years? And here's the real kicker. Was this a medical emergency, or was it karma cashing its check? You decide. All I can tell you is that the night Yandy went down, the internet went up in flames. And trust me, this is just the beginning. The hospital corridors weren't ready for the chaos that erupted that night. Nurses rushing, phones ringing, cameras flashing. Because, let's be honest, nothing about Yandy and Mendeecees ever happens quietly. These two don't just live life. They broadcast a soap opera that somehow always ends up trendier than half the shows on primetime TV. But this was different. This wasn't staged. This wasn't some love and hip-hop reunion special. This was real. Or at least, it looked real enough to send the internet into overdrive. So how did we even get here? Let's rewind for a second. Yandy Smith, the self-proclaimed queen of handling business and handling drama, has never exactly been low profile. From the moment she stepped into the spotlight, she's been selling us a brand. Strong, bossed up, untouchable. But if you've been paying attention, the cracks have been showing for years. Shady deals, whispers of backroom betrayals, messy love triangles that could put Shakespeare to shame. It's all been bubbling under the surface. And then, just when fans thought maybe, just maybe Yandy and Mendeecees had finally settled into a boring normal life. Boom. Midnight collapse. Now let's talk about Mendeecees, shall we? The man, the myth, the meltdown. This is the same guy who once looked America in the eye and said he wasn't sure if he could be faithful while his wife was holding it down. The same guy who turned emotional distance into an Olympic sport. And suddenly, on the very night Yandy's heart gives out, he's the one sprawled out in front of the ICU like a man auditioning for a tragedy he himself co-wrote. Coincidence? Or cosmic justice? Anonymous sources, because of course there are always anonymous sources, claim the argument leading up to Yandy's collapse wasn't about bills, kids, or who left the dishes in the sink. No. Word on the street is Yandy had confronted Mendeecees about a string of late-night messages from an unnamed industry friend. You don't need to be Sherlock Holmes to know what unnamed industry friend really means. Screenshots allegedly exist, though no one's been brave enough or foolish enough to leak them yet. But insiders swear this was the fight that pushed everything over the edge. And here's where it gets even more twisted. Some fans are saying Yandy's collapse was less about stress and more about, well, let's just say a little too much assistance from her so-called wellness routine. Pills, powders, miracle supplements, call it what you want. The wellness industry is a billion-dollar lie wrapped in glitter packaging. And if anyone was buying in bulk, it was Yandy. Doctors, of course, are refusing to comment, which only fuels the speculation. Because when have doctors ever been quiet unless there's something massive to hide? Meanwhile, outside those double ICU doors, Mendeecees is playing the role of his life. Crying, screaming, falling to his knees. Witnesses say he clutched his chest like the grief itself was going to kill him. But not everyone is buying the performance. A cousin, yes, a real family member, was overheard saying, "Now he wanna cry, please." He wasn't crying when he was out at 2 a.m. last week. Savage but not surprising. Family always knows where the skeletons are buried. Social media, naturally, turned the entire ordeal into a 24/7 live-streamed circus. Within minutes, #PrayForYandy was trending across the US and UK, racking up millions of tweets. But so was hashtag Mendeecees exposed, with fans digging up every shady clip, every suspicious look, every side-eye moment from past seasons of Love and hip-hop. It was like an online trial, with thousands of self-appointed lawyers delivering guilty verdicts from their iPhones. And the jury, brutal. One fan tweeted, "Yandy collapsing ain't the shock. The real shock is Mendeecees pretending like he cares." Another chimed in, "If stress could kill, Mendeecees would have been charged with manslaughter by now." But the harshest takes came from those who've never trusted the couple's power love story in the first place. Conspiracy theorists suggested the entire scene. Yes, the ambulance, the collapse, the tears, was a publicity stunt for an upcoming reality spin-off. Because let's face it, stranger things have gone down in this industry. And just when you think the night couldn't possibly get messier, it did. Reports say that while Yandy was being rushed into emergency care, Mendeecees fainted in the hallway. Some call it exhaustion, others say it was staged. Witnesses described it as a collapse that looked suspiciously timed, like the cameras had been waiting for him to hit the floor. One hospital staffer allegedly whispered, "It felt like we were watching a scene, not an emergency." But whether real or fake, one thing is undeniable. Mendeecees flat on the cold hospital tiles while Yandy fought for her life inside was an image too powerful to ignore. By dawn, the chaos had spiraled into a national headline. News tickers screamed about Yandy's medical emergency, while gossip blogs went feral with unverified claims. One outlet swore she'd gone into cardiac arrest. Another insisted she was poisoned by a jealous insider. The theories piled higher than the truth. But in today's world, who cares about truth when the drama tastes this good? And so we're left with the million-dollar question. Was Yandy's collapse the result of years of emotional abuse, a shady health regimen, or just bad luck striking at the worst possible moment? And is Mendeecees the heartbroken husband, or the guilty villain caught in his own soap opera? Whatever the case, this was only the opening act. Because as the sun rose, so did the whispers of what came next. And trust me, those whispers were a whole lot darker than anyone expected. Because as the sun rose, so did the whispers of what came next. And trust me, those whispers were a whole lot darker than anyone expected. What started as a midnight emergency quickly snowballed into a scandal big enough to choke the morning news cycle. By breakfast time, the hospital wasn't just swarming with doctors. It was crawling with paparazzi, bloggers, and self-proclaimed insiders, ready to spill tea hotter than the coffee in their hands. Anonymous hospital staff leaked that doctors were scrambling because Yandy's condition wasn't responding to standard treatment. Translation: something in her system didn't add up. Of course, this tiny piece of info was enough to send conspiracy theorists into full meltdown mode. Some claimed she'd been poisoned by a jealous rival. Others insisted she overdosed on performance enhancers, meant to keep her image flawless. One particularly wild rumor suggested she'd been experimenting with dangerous stem cell treatments, borrowed from a shady overseas clinic. Was it science, sabotage, or straight-up self-destruction? Nobody knew, but everybody had an opinion. And speaking of opinions, Mendeecees wasn't exactly earning sympathy points. While Yandy fought for her life behind closed doors, he was pacing the halls like a man rehearsing his grief for the cameras. Witnesses claimed he was on the phone non-stop, shouting at someone one minute, whispering into the receiver the next. Who was on the other end of those calls? A lawyer? A mistress? A desperate PR rep trying to spin this into a comeback story? Whatever the case, it didn't look like a husband's panic. It looked like damage control. One insider, a cousin's friend's barber's nephew, you know the type, allegedly overheard Mendeecees snapping, "If this leaks, I'm finished. Do you hear me? Finished." Finished with what, exactly? The marriage? The brand deals? Or the carefully constructed facade of being Mr. Family Man that he's been selling for years? The internet latched on to that quote like piranhas to raw meat. Memes exploded with captions like, "Not Mendeecees worried about leaks while Yandy's leaking 4 drips. Savage doesn't even begin to cover it." Meanwhile, Fans who once worshipped the couple were now dissecting every past scandal like forensic scientists. Old clips resurfaced of Yandy brushing off rumors, of Mendeecees dodging questions about fidelity, of family members hinting at bigger problems than what you see on screen. Suddenly, the narrative shifted. Maybe this wasn't just a health scare. Maybe this was karma's grand finale. And let's not ignore the lavish spending trail that somehow got dragged into the conversation. Alleged receipts showed recent shopping sprees, luxury vacations, and suspicious wire transfers to consultants no one could identify. Was Yandy burning through money to keep up appearances? Was Mendeecees funneling cash into hush money payments? Nobody could prove it, but the headlines didn't care. Financial secrets behind Yandy's collapse, screamed one tabloid. Mendeecees' midnight wire transfer raises questions, blared another. When the smoke is this thick, who needs fire? By midday, social media was at war. Half the crowd was praying for Yandy's recovery, posting candle emojis and heartfelt tributes. The other half was gleefully tearing down the facade, calling the couple frauds, liars, and reality TV con artists. One viral TikTok broke down Yandy's entire boss lady image in under 60 seconds, ending with the mic drop line. Turns out the empire was built on quicksand. Millions watched. Millions agreed. But the chaos didn't stop at gossip. Reports surfaced that local authorities were reviewing the situation. Reviewing what, you ask? Nobody could say for sure. Some whispered about potential drug investigations. Others speculated financial fraud. One rumor claimed child services had been alerted. Whether true or not, the mere suggestion was enough to light the internet on fire. It wasn't just about Yandy's health anymore. It was about everything the couple stood for. Every secret they thought was buried, every skeleton rattling in the closet. And then came the so-called leaked reports. Supposed medical documents appeared online, detailing substances found in Yandy's system. Were they real? Doubtful. But did people care? Absolutely not. The words unidentified compounds were all it took for the narrative to spiral. Suddenly, Yandy wasn't just a woman in crisis. She was a symbol of excess, of hypocrisy, of the dark side of chasing fame. Public reactions got uglier by the hour. Former friends and castmates started chiming in, dropping thinly veiled jabs on Instagram stories. One wrote, "Funny how truth always comes out at the worst time." Another posted, "Prayers up, but let's not pretend we didn't see this coming." Even rivals who once envied her spotlight now seemed almost gleeful at her downfall. It was less #pray for Yandy and more #finally exposed. And yet, in the middle of all this chaos, the image that haunted everyone was still the same. Mendeecees collapsing outside the ICU. Was it guilt? Was it shock? Or was it just another act in the never-ending reality show that is their life? Eyewitnesses said he lay on the floor gasping, muttering, "This is all my fault." And maybe, just maybe, for the first time he wasn't lying. But here's the kicker. While cameras focused on Mendeecees, whispers suggested another player was about to enter the drama. A name from the past. Someone with enough dirt to bury both Yandy and Mendeecees 10 feet deep. And if those whispers are true, then what happened in that hospital wasn't the end of their story. It was just the prologue to something much, much worse. And if those whispers are true, then what happened in that hospital wasn't the end of their story. It was just the prologue to something much, much worse. Because trust me, the midnight collapse and the hallway breakdown were only the opening act. What came after made the entire saga feel less like a health crisis and more like a courtroom drama waiting to happen. Within 24 hours, a so-called confidential informant surfaced. Their claim that Yandy's medical emergency wasn't a random collapse at all. It was a direct consequence of the toxic double life she and Mendeecees had been living. According to this anonymous whistleblower, late-night arguments, financial stress, and dangerous extracurricular habits had been building up for months. And when the body finally gave out, the secrets followed right behind. But here's the real kicker. Leaked screenshots. grainy, barely legible, but juicy enough to ignite a wildfire, allegedly showed Mendeecees communicating with someone labeled Consultant X. The messages: discussions about transferring funds, securing quiet favors, and wait for it, making sure no paper trail existed. Was it shady business, a cover-up, or just bad phrasing? Doesn't matter because the internet decided for him. Guilty until proven guiltier. Meanwhile, the hospital scene turned into a circus. Reporters camped outside, helicopters hovered overhead, and TikTokers filmed investigative tours of the ER entrance like it was a crime scene. Inside, doctors tried to stabilize Yandy, but even they couldn't silence the growing storm. One nurse supposedly overheard Mendeecees pleading, "Don't let her go. I'll fix everything, just save her." Fix everything. What exactly was broken? The marriage? The finances? His conscience? You could practically hear the speculation echoing across social media. And then came the bombshell. Whispers of a government probe. Allegedly, certain agencies had already been monitoring Mendeecees for suspicious financial activity. Yandy's collapse, conveniently or inconveniently, put a giant spotlight on everything. Suddenly, what was once tabloid fodder turned into breaking news. Federal eyes on reality couple amid health crisis, screamed the headlines. The narrative shifted from gossip to potential indictment. Fans were divided. Some defended Yandy fiercely, calling her a victim of stress, betrayal, and the crushing pressure of being the family backbone. Others argued she was complicit, that her hands weren't as clean as they looked on Instagram. After all, hadn't she always played the role of boss lady, managing deals, signing checks, running the empire? If shady money was involved, could she really be innocent? And as if fate wanted to twist the knife deeper, old enemies came crawling out of the woodwork. Former business partners, estranged relatives, even a one-time best friend who claimed Yandy stole her shine, all eager to share their truth. One even hinted that the couple's empire had been propped up by a web of lies from the very beginning. Imagine standing at someone's hospital bedside while the whole world debates whether you deserve prayers or punishment. That was Yandy's reality. But the internet wasn't satisfied with whispers and half-truths. They demanded visuals. And they got them. Paparazzi photos leaked of Mendeecees slumped in a hospital chair, head buried in his hands, looking every bit the broken man. Sympathy surged, until someone zoomed in and noticed the brand new designer sneakers on his feet. Within hours, memes went viral. Crying in Dior hits different. Even his grief couldn't escape scrutiny. Still, the most chilling part of the story wasn't the memes or the money trails. It was the possibility that Yandy might not pull through. Doctors reportedly told the family that her body was in critical shutdown mode. Machines were doing the work her organs refused to. Every beep of the monitor sounded like a ticking clock. Was this her curtain call? Or would she rise from the ashes like a reality TV phoenix? The pressure mounted. Rumors flew that producers from Love and Hip Hop were circling like vultures, debating whether to turn the crisis into a storyline. Can you imagine? Cameras rolling while a family shatters in real time. Welcome to the world where tragedy equals ratings. And while fans debated morality, another subplot was brewing. Custody. If Yandy didn't make it, who would care for the children? Could Mendeecees, embroiled in scandal, possibly facing investigations, be trusted to hold it together? Or would relatives step in and spark an all-out family war? Some even speculated that child services might intervene. Nothing pulls views like the words, custody battle. By the third night, the hospital felt less like a place of healing and more like the set of a dystopian soap opera. Supporters stood outside holding candles, while detractors held up signs saying, "Justice for the truth." Hashtags clashed. Hashtag pray for Yandy versus hashtag expose the frauds. The line between compassion and condemnation blurred until it practically disappeared. And right in the middle of it all, Mendeecees. The man who once built his image on resilience now looked like a ghost of himself. Every twitch, every sigh, every whispered word became content. One viral clip showed him pacing the hallway muttering, "I can't lose her, not now." Yet even that sparked division. Was it genuine fear, or the panic of a man watching his empire crumble? But let's be real. The internet doesn't care about nuance. They care about drama. And this scandal gave them drama in industrial-sized portions. Health crisis, money trail, federal whispers, family fractures. It had all the ingredients of a headline that refuses to die. And that's where we leave it. Not with closure, not with clarity, but with chaos. Yandy still fighting for her life. Mendeecees still fighting his demons. Fans torn between sympathy and suspicion. Enemies sharpening their knives for the next blow. And us, the spectators, hanging on to every update like it's the season finale of a show we swore we'd stop watching but can't look away from. Because when love, fame, and scandal collide, the fallout isn't just tragic, it's addictive. And if you think this story has reached its climax, think again. The real drama, it's only just begun. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen. After 3 nights of chaos, scandal, and soul-crushing breakdowns, one question refuses to go away. Is this the tragic downfall of Yandy and Mendeecees, or the brutal rebirth of a couple whose entire empire has been built on drama? Think about it. A midnight collapse that shakes the internet. A desperate plea in a hospital hallway. Leaked whispers of secret money trails and federal eyes watching every move. And a family that might be crumbling right in front of us while the whole world tunes in like it's pay-per-view. But let me throw this back to you. Do you believe Yandy is just an innocent victim of stress, betrayed by the weight of her empire and the man she trusted? Or do you think she knew exactly what was happening behind the scenes, and her silence was just as dangerous as his actions? And what about Mendeecees? Are those tears real? Or is this just another performance for sympathy points while the walls close in? Here's the real kicker. What happens if the whispers about federal investigations are true? Will we see Mendeecees hauled away in handcuffs while Yandy fights for her life? Or will the couple somehow spin this into yet another comeback, proving once again that scandal isn't their downfall, it's their brand? Drop your thoughts below because trust me, your opinion matters here. Was this a tragedy, a cover-up, or the biggest publicity stunt of the year? Smash that like button if you think the truth is still hiding in plain sight. Hit subscribe if you want every twist, every leak, and every jaw-dropping update the moment it breaks. And don't just watch. Be part of the investigation. Because this isn't just entertainment anymore, it's history in the making.